question of the panel, call 401-766-1240 or email coffee@woonsocketradio.com. And now, let's join the Coffee and Panel.
And good morning, everybody. It's time for Coffee and around the world and across the nation. Dave Richards still here. I expected to be gone by today, but Joe Callahan picked up a bug on his way back from vacation, and he told me, Dave, he says, I don't want to bring it into Park Avenue. And I says, you're a nice man, Callahan. And I said, take the rest of the week off. So he'll be doing that. He'll be back on Monday. What do you think? But our usual Thursday morning pal, Bob Larder, is here.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Just think of all of this stuff. A big Virginia lawyer, a law degree, a practice of many decades, and we call you our Thursday morning pal.
Thank you. I thought Joe was just still in Fantasyland. I didn't realize that.
No, that was yesterday.
Yesterday.
He flew back from there yesterday.
I thought working here was Fantasyland.
Ah, yes. Well, it could be. Depends on your point of view, I'm sure. And we are expecting that Sue Tessier McKenzie will join us as well. Other guests I have not been slipped a note about, but they other guests as appear. We'll
Sounds
put
good.
it that way. I learned from last week because nobody wrote down about this guest and that guest, and I found out as we went along. And life is
That's
just
why
like
the
that.
Ouija board is out in the other room?
No.
Oh, okay.
I enjoy to a certain extent life's rich bounty of surprises. Yes,
Okay.
I enjoy it.
Speaking of surprises,
Yes.
what's your take on the student demonstrations down at RISD?
Everything old is new again. It's the narrow tie, Bob.
Okay. Thinking back to the 1970s. Okay. Yep.
Well, actually, the ties were narrower in the 60s, and that's when they started. But yeah.
Fashion icon.
Yeah,
Darn.
right. It's the narrow tie, and they're going to do it. And you've got some that do it with some class, and some that do it with conviction, and some that just do it for a party. And they're insincere. They may be paid operatives to conduct it, or they may be just a lot of people with hate in their heart, and they just need to share it with the rest of the world. Whatever the individual circumstances are, I'm sure there's a certain mix in each one of all the different ingredients, but there's one ingredient that predominates in each of these groups. And the reason I groups, and I imagine I'm thinking about the news story I read this morning, Bob, from RISD. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to pull it out really quick here to, let's see, maybe I can. Yeah, because I did want to quote.
A quote.
Yeah, I did want to quote, so I wanted to get the paper in front of me. The ProPath study and demonstrators at RISD, Rhode Island School of Design. They've continued the occupation of the school, and they say that occupation will continue until the school buckles down and meets their demands. The protesters have made public statements, and they've told President Crystal Williams at RISD they will not bend or make any concessions to the administration, and any attempts to intimidate or divide them will only make them stronger. So there.
Can I go way back into history, even
You
before
could
the
do
1970s?
that. On the other hand, by the way, this, of course, an equal and opposite reaction, is now the administration at RISD, and the president is quoted as saying, well, okay, listen, I was speaking up for you in front of the Board of Trustees and saying maybe we should listen to what you have to say. No more. And I'm not even going to talk to the Board of Directors until you leave the building and pledge not to disrupt commencement.
Let me tell you
So they're
something
digging in on
the
both
side,
sides.
but in the meantime, Sue, you got to stand up and show everybody how great this is. This is a fantastic
This
outfit.
Now, let's...
This is what you wear
Yes.
when it's
Flowers.
sunny, cloudy.
Yeah, there's flowers.
It
You're the only
certainly
person
brings
that I
Sunny
know
into
that can
the
stand
room.
up and still be in full frame on the camera.
That's because I'm only 5 feet tall.
Yeah, you're still taller than my mother. My mother
Mine too.
Yeah, there you go. I remember you.
4'11".
Right. And but my mom actually shrank as time went along. She was in her 80s when she
So
passed.
did
and
mine.
She was down to 4'8".
I'm gonna have to tend to agree with that's probably where my mom is, because she's like 87.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, your mom's younger than my mom was.
I think she's 87. 86. Yeah, I think she just
Yeah.
turned 87.
All right. So as we were in a heated discussion here, Sue, when you walked in,
I caught
but
that.
Bob truncated it in order to give you this special recognition when you entered the studio of your beautiful floral print dress today
Well, thank you, Bob.
It looks great.
and salmon jacket. Or is that a vest?
No, jacket.
Jacket. Okay. Okay. Back to
No, I was-
1970s revisit.
Okay.
Actually, I like to say the 60s because all the protests started in the 60s.
I'm going to go further back than
You're
that.
going to go, okay.
A possible way in which some of this can be resolved.
Yes.
You go back to
The nuclear option?
No,
Oh, it's too bad.
1938.
China suggested that.
1938. And Secretary of Commerce Harold Ickes in the FDR administration. 1938, the administration decided they were going to construct the Jefferson Memorial down in Washington, D.C. on the
This is the federal administration.
Federal administration.
Roosevelt, yeah.
On the area where they had lots and lots of cherry trees.
Mm-hmm.
People were upset that the cherry trees were going to be removed.
Right.
They went and they chained themselves to the cherry trees so they couldn't be removed. Harold Ickes,
Dangerous place to be if they're chopping them down.
Harold Ickes was smart.
Yeah.
Harold Ickes came in and he served all of the demonstrators coffee and tea and things like that, which meant that they had to leave the cherry trees in order to take care of certain calls of nature. And when they did so, they weren't allowed back into the same area and they
Right.
could not then rechain themselves to the trees.
Right.
I would suggest that maybe one of the ways to resolve the issue down in Providence would be for the
Shut off the
administration
plumbing.
to shut off
Turn off the
plumbing
water.
and stop the food from going in. And then let the individuals decide whether or not they really wanted to remain in the building and how long they wanted to remain there without the food to consume.
I'm sure we'd hear a few people, few of the occupiers cry, "They ain't paying me enough for this. I'm leaving."
Well, I
Right.
think that it might encourage some of them to vacate the building. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you
Probably
know.
won't work, but I just want to drag out something that's even older than I am to talk about.
Well, listen, Bob, that's important, and what you bring up certainly is a good lesson for all of us because, in my belief, the more you read about history and the successes and mistakes of those that came before us on this planet, the more good information you are given to make a wiser choice in this life.
I should have
Ponder that.
ponder that. Yeah. What does that mean?
Well, you know, with all this going on, my personal opinion, I stated before, is there has to be accountability. And, you know, it's like if you have two kids and you say to the kids, okay, we're going to have ice cream after dinner, but you have to eat your whole dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So one of
I've
the
heard
kids,
that before.
One of the kids eats his whole dinner, wants his ice cream. The other kid says, well, I didn't feel like eating my whole dinner. You don't give that one ice cream.
Right.
So with these kids, whether you have the kids trying to graduate, the kids trying to continue their schooling and whatnot, what gives them incentive if you're just catering to this side?
Yeah.
It's like you can't do that. There has to be some accountability. Otherwise, it's not worth doing what you're supposed to do, I guess, regardless of what that's supposed to do.
Unfortunately,
is.
there's an entire political movement that is
Of
gathering
course.
some strength these days
Yep,
that wants to remove consequences for all bad choices.
of course.
And
I think that's been true
I,
in human nature
Right.
forever.
they
For a
seem
long
to be they seem to be members of Congress now and members of state legislators now. And they weren't before. They were like a fringe element that was on the outskirts that wanted this sort of thing, and they realized in order to get what they wanted, they had to then become people who were in the power structure that could affect that change. So they have, and so now the big changes start, and it makes it uncomfortable.
I don't think that's relegated just to the present time. I think that's
No.
something that has happened throughout history continually.
But nothing ticks off the people with the movements today. Nothing ticks off people worse than looking them in the face and saying, "Yeah, I've seen it before. It's no big deal," because they want to be a big deal.
Yeah, I can see that.
You
I
know,
can, yeah.
Mayor Wu up in Boston made a big point of saying, "Hey, listen, I saw the tapes. I saw the body cam footage that these students that they arrested at Emerson wanted to be arrested. They didn't want to protest as much as they wanted to be arrested. Their goal was to be arrested. Don't be criticizing us for arresting them. We gave them what they wanted.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the students may have felt that by being arrested, they called more attention to their particular cause, and that if they hadn't been arrested, it would probably be lower down on the front page or onto the back page, and people would not be aware of
Yeah.
the issues that those students thought were very important to bring to the public attention.
Yeah, I get it. But if they read history books, they realized it wasn't going to go anywhere. So what are you
Well,
going to
not
do?
necessarily. I mean, there have been changes as things went along.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of the protests in the late 60s, early 70s about the Vietnam War, and it did have an impact on what the government did, and the government did voluntarily remove from the troops from Vietnam. What was it, 1974 or
You call
thereabouts?
that voluntarily with all those demonstrations?
Well, I think that the government could have
They
said
decided to, yeah.
they didn't. They looked at the situation. They decided to make the changes. They removed the troops from Vietnam. The democratic government that we had supported in Vietnam collapsed, and the government that was supported by the Viet Cong was successful. And if it had not been for the demonstrations in the early 70s, I'm not sure that would have taken place.
You got
I think
a point
that
there.
brought it to the attention of the government.
That certainly
pushed it.
proved to the protesters where they were going with that. Okay, so we have another communist government on the planet. I hope you're happy.
Did it really? But you step back for 30 years and you look at Vietnam now. We're buying a lot of products from Vietnam. Vietnam is not the terrible situation that we predicted it was going to be in the 1960s. Were we justified in spending that much time and blood on trying to change the government or preserve a government in a foreign country?
I hope you're asking rhetorically, because that's a question that's
Yeah, rhetorical question.
because right. War is never right. It simply happens. It's one of the bad things that happens on this planet, and it's never right. So that's, if you're talking to me and you're asking me the question, that's what Dave's going to tell you. War is never right.
I think that
Bad things happen on this planet, and we have to accept that sometimes. But war is never right. You look at what's happening in Gaza right now. That ain't right. There's no way that it's right. But what sparked the present tensions, or the present war, because it has been declared as a war, what sparked that war wasn't right either. And wars happen when both sides do things that aren't right. War isn't right.
okay, I'll go partly away with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, but it is something that has to happen, I guess, in this human condition. Or maybe it's better that I say it's something that happens, because I really would like to believe that it doesn't have to happen, but I have to accept, because it's reality, that it does happen and you have to deal with it.
Okay.
I
Getting
think-
too deep for Sue, I can see that.
No, I'm sitting here going, okay, Bob, what's next? It's your play. It's like a chess game over here.
I think Dave has knocked over my queen and chucked her on the floor.
Well, that's why I'm like, okay, what do you got, Bob?
Nah,
Yeah.
I'm under the table trying to find the pawns.
Well, we got a good legal question for Bob a little bit later on in the program.
Uh-oh.
But I got to take a quick break. We'll come back and hear a message from Sue and the Blackstone Valley Call and Times newspapers. But that's the opening round. We have more to come here in Coffee Ann, so stay with us, won't you?
One of our gold medal winners in the Best of the Blackstone Valley is Marchand Environmental of Blackstone. They won gold in the category of septic service. They also won silver in the junk removal dumpsters category. For information, visit marchandenvironmental.com, one of the best of the Blackstone Valley.
John Chan sent me a little note to remind you that Mother's Day is a special day at Chan's on Main Street in Woonsocket. Happy Mother's Day. Reserved today to be sure there's room for Mom at table. Remember, Mom, on her special day, treat her to the best Chinese restaurant, Chan's. Best wonton soup, teriyaki, egg rolls, crab rangoon, chicken wings, boneless ribs, Mongolian steak, walnut shrimp delight. General Chow's chicken, lo mein fried rice, and that's just a tip of the iceberg. 32 special combination dinners, the best Mai Tai and Scorpion bowls, too, the poo poo platter. Oh, my goodness, it's Chan's. And, of course, if you're thinking I just made you hungry, keep in mind the telephone number to call for delivery, 765-1900. It's 765-1900 for Chan's, 267 Main Street in Woonsocket. Yummy.
The Coffee and Panel is enjoying coffee from Down East Coffee Roasters. All their coffee is roasted right here in Rhode Island. Down East Coffee Roasters is available at all Little General stores.
Have you heard of Scott McGee with Remax Properties? He's been selling real estate in Rhode Island and Massachusetts for the last 17 years, and you can see that he loves what he does. Scott, as well as his team, take pride in what they call the fair and honest team. No gimmicks. And no, they're not buying your house if it doesn't sell, etc. Just fair and honest real estate. Scott personally works with tons of sellers and buyers and specializes in residential properties as well as commercial, and he's always very fair and offers super competitive rates. Remember, this is probably the biggest move in dollars that you will ever spend or receive. You want to go with a trusted and experienced agent. Scott is fair, honest, and modest, always puts the clients first. And he also dealt with literally almost any situation. You really need to look at your real estate needs as a business. You want to pay and get the right money now so that you're not paying for it later. Trust me. So why not give Scott McGee a call at 401-639-2906. That's 401-639-2906.
We're back here on Coffee and here on ON AM and FM radio. I'm sorry, what was that, Bob?
Where was Sue's message?
It's time for it now.
Okay, great.
Because she was a few minutes late, and I wanted to give her full measure. So we didn't do it in the first segment. We have room here in the second
That's
segment to
okay.
do
You
it.
just wanted me to get my thoughts together. You see
Of
me
course
with
I
any
do.
paper or anything?
Of
Sorry,
course.
Bob. That wasn't directed at you. I
That's
have
right.
nothing.
A little script.
Anyway, we have been getting so much busier every day at the office. However, today, Christina must work from home due to a water heater problem. But if you need anything, by all means, give her a call, 767-8503.
And she'll pick up.
And she'll answer. Yes,
Even though she's not on
she's
site,
working
she'll
from
pick
home.
up.
You know when they give you that 5-hour window thing? Well,
Yeah.
so she's working from home. Tomorrow, the office will be closed.
Why?
People will be available, but the office itself is closed because Christina has a vacation day,
Oh.
and I work on the road. So
Right,
I
right.
might be there for an hour in the morning.
So drop on
but
by.
then
Sue might be there, but bring
the
a bottle of
office-
wine.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because it'll just be me. But anyway, if
John won't care.
anything you need,
The numbers are good, John King. She don't
right,
care.
right, there you go. Anything you need, though, you can call myself at 487-4136. You can call Christina at 767-8503 or circulation at 767-8522.
Thank you. I didn't adjust your microphone properly. Let me just do that. Like that.
Oh, no, I moved it.
So I can see you. People want to see
Oh,
your face.
okay, I see what you're
They don't want to
saying.
see you hide behind the mic. They want to see your face. Uh-huh. All righty. Well, that's it. Yesterday's program, we have they like to call themselves the Wrecking Crew in. John Ward was here, and Tim Draper and Melissa Smith, and I brought up something with them that they said you should bring that up in front of the lawyer.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. They
Oh,
didn't
this I
remember
want to hear.
They didn't remember your name, but they said you should bring
Oh,
it up in
good,
front of the
good, good.
No, they remember. your name.
When I don't have the right
Just
answer,
teasing.
then yep.
All right. So, Bob, here's the discussion in synopsis of what happened on yesterday's program. And it has to do with states' rights and federal responsibility. Does this sound familiar? I mean, like from the 1850s and 60s? But anyway, the Rhode Island legislature, and this is not a joke, this really happened last week. The Rhode Island legislature took first steps and passed in the Senate chamber a bill that, if it goes all the way through and is signed by the governor, affords protections to doctors and healthcare professionals that reside in our state against retaliation from other states when other states' citizens come to Rhode Island, present themselves for a medical procedure that's legal in Rhode Island but not in their home state. Other states have vowed to retaliate, to go in and to charge those Rhode Island doctors and health professionals with a crime.
I don't know how either side is intending to enforce this.
Right.
If Dr. X performs a medical
Let's say
procedure,
abortion because that's where it started, okay?
all right, Dr. X performs an abortion,
Right.
and it is in violation of the laws of the state somewhere down south. Dr. X, as long as the doctor stays in Rhode Island,
Right.
the other state can't prosecute. If Dr. X passes through the state that has that law on his way to Disney World and is arrested and prosecuted in that state, I have no idea what Rhode Island is going to be able to do to try and protect that individual unless they send down attorneys to represent the doctor in the courts of the other state. I don't think Rhode Island's going to be sending down goon squads that are going to be getting the doctor out
But
of
we
jail
have a
and bringing
National
him back.
Guard.
Yeah, but I think the concept of having the National Guard of one state invade another state is going to be pretty analogous to a major civil
Well, it
war.
happened in the 19th century.
Yeah, but we also ended up having the Civil War from 1861 to 1865.
Right.
That's ridiculous in the present situation. I think that passing such legislation in Rhode Island without figuring out exactly how you can enforce it is pretty much a let's do something to show we have support for our doctors here, but not practical in the actual application of the law. And sort of we feel good about what we're doing, but that's as far as it's going to go.
Well, I suspected, and I've spoken to someone on this that supposes that they know they're on the inside, but I suspected that it's really a symbolic support. In
Correct.
order because as part of the discussion, I overheard the comment, we don't have enough doctors and healthcare professionals in Rhode Island now, we can't afford to lose them.
Okay.
And so, in the context of the discussion at the time, it was kind of like we can't afford to let them go to jail in another state. But I don't think that that's really where it was coming from. It was coming from a voluntary flight if we didn't take steps, however symbolic and unrealistic, to show our support for them.
Well, I don't know where the voluntary flight would be going to, because I would think Rhode Island is one of the more liberal states when it comes to saying that the government is hands-off on making decisions that should be made by medical professionals and not by people in the state legislature. So I would not think that if I was a doctor here and I thought I had the freedom to make a decision whether or not I wanted to engage in performing an abortion on an individual, that was less protected than it would be somewhere else. I think I'd have the feeling of freedom to make the decisions on my own right here.
May I interject? Because y'all
Yes.
lost me, okay?
What?
So let's just say that what you're saying is
How
a
did we lose
doctor. You completely lost me, because then you said they were passing through Disney.
That's an example.
Right, but never mentioned them actually performing anything here. So I'm just trying to clarify. So you're saying, let's say this doctor is licensed and has his practice in, we'll say, North Carolina. Okay?
Well,
Is that what
Okay.
you're
No.
in another state?
No, in Rhode Island.
Okay, so he's licensed in Rhode Island.
Yes.
right. And someone from Louisiana,
Okay.
which has
Comes
a
here.
ban.
Okay, that's
that
where I
now-
got lost. You're talking about
You
the
know how when they
okay.
have an abortion ban in some
Yep,
states,
yep.
they always say, except, save the life of the mother or a case of rape or
Yep.
incest, something like that, right? Well, Louisiana has removed those exceptions.
Okay.
Just no abortions,
So you're
period.
talking about
It's
a
criminal
woman
act.
from Louisiana now flies to Rhode Island.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
The person, yes.
I'm good.
The person who wants the abortion flies to Rhode Island because it's legal in Rhode Island.
Okay.
When they present to a medical facility, the medical professionals that work there, both doctors and non-doctors, are obliged by their oath and by the laws of the state to treat that person within
Right.
the limits of
Right.
the law. If they present and they believe that an abortion is necessary, they want the abortion, and they can find no medical reason not to give them an abortion, then the medical professionals here shall provide the service.
Gotcha.
All right? Now, if they do that, they have now violated the laws of another state they don't live in. And the other state has vowed to prosecute them.
I think
Because because the individual came from that state.
Right, because
Gotcha.
you did this to one of our citizens, you can't do that.
I think that would be very difficult for the state that is making the prosecution to be successful in as well, because
Right.
the actions of
This
the
is why
doctor
we come
in
to
Rhode
you,
Island.
the judge of all things here, legal.
Really?
Yes.
Whoa.
This is why we come to you for the discussion, because he just got into the weeds yesterday because it was so absurdly wrong on both sides.
Right,
I think
right.
Kind of like war.
Well, when you because all you kept saying was the doctor, and the way I understood it was going to a different state. And I'm like, hold up, I'm missing a piece
And
of the puzzle, and that was the
we gave
piece.
them is, okay, fine. The other state can't do anything as long as they're here in Rhode Island. But now they can't travel out of the state of Rhode Island with this protection.
No, I think
You
that-
see, when you're taking it to the next level of absurdity.
Of absurdity, yes.
Right. Now, if that doctor gets in his station wagon with his kiddies and his spouse and decides to travel, and on vacation they happen to go through, let's say, Louisiana,
Yep.
and then the Louisiana authorities, however they do, find out that that doctor who gave an abortion to a Louisiana citizen when the Louisiana citizen went to Rhode Island to get it, and it was legal here, but that doctor is now traveling and within the jurisdiction of the state of Louisiana. Now they want him and they're going to prosecute him.
That's
I think the
nonsense.
prosecution would be very difficult. However, I'm amazed that a doctor would be driving a station wagon. It's in 1955? Doesn't this guy have any kind of practice that gives him money?
Well, all right. Well, that's
Easy to
humorous.
find on the highway.
That's
I mean,
humorous,
there's not
but-
many country squires out there anymore.
I guess you're
But
right.
I did have a visual when Dave said station wagon. That's what I envisioned, a country squire.
Yeah.
I really did.
Or maybe he's traveling to see his mother in California, and he's got a non-direct flight and the changed planes in New Orleans or Baton Rouge, which can happen, right? You're on an airplane in
Absolutely.
Rhode Island. You're going to California, but
Storms
the
up
airline
ahead.
routes
You got to
through
reroute. Yep.
an airport in another jurisdiction, and it could be a different one. I'm just picking on Louisiana because right now they're the poster child for intolerance on this issue. It could be any of the other states that decide, because there are other states that have some
Right.
pretty stiff bans on abortion as well, and we don't here in Rhode Island.
But I think
so-
if you try to enforce that on abortion, okay, which we know that's really not the only
Right.
premise because there's going to be other issues. What about if a doctor here in Rhode Island that's a specialist in a certain field, so this person comes to the state
right.
for that specialty.
Right.
We're not talking abortion, for that specialty. Now insurances from that state can say, I'm sorry, we're not going to pay for that. You went out of state.
See, you're bringing
That'll
it to that next
open
level.
up the next
Right.
level.
It does. And imagine if it's not Rhode Island we're talking about.
Right.
It was because it started with the Senate taking some action here. But imagine it wasn't. Imagine if it was Minnesota. How many hundreds of people travel to the Mayo Clinic for procedures that might be deemed risky or not right in another state?
It just opens up such a. It's not even a can of
I think
worms.
This
It's
is a
bucket.
Supreme Court federal government deal.
I think the legal issue is kind of superfluous, but I think what Sue just brought up now has much more impact. If you have a healthcare insurance company that says, we will not, you're a Louisiana resident, you've come to Rhode Island for this procedure, and you have whatever insurance
out
is
of
available.
network.
You're
Out
out
of
of network,
network.
and therefore we're not going to pay for it. I think that is a more significant impediment than anything about along the lines of what state legislatures may
Right,
be
'cause I
doing.
think that can affect more people as opposed to, and don't misunderstand me when I say this, but as opposed to just the abortion issue. It impacts more people.
And that's
That would
a-
impact me with my husband, for example.
That would be a way in which a state could have a much greater impact if the legislature in Louisiana said, okay, for Louisiana healthcare, we're telling you cannot pay the insurance for anybody in your provider membership that has an abortion in another state. That would be a big impact, and that might be something that could be more enforceable. But if I commit a murder in Massachusetts and kill somebody in Blackstone, I don't think Rhode Island can bring me into court for a murder in Massachusetts. I think it would be Massachusetts that has to prosecute me.
Yeah.
So
But when this happens, Bob, as you know, there's that little mechanism, that legal mechanism called extradition that comes into play to complicate the matter.
that's bringing the individual back to the jurisdiction where the alleged crime took place. The alleged crime did not take place in Louisiana. The
Right,
alleged
but
crime
back to
took
Rhode
place
Island.
in Woonsocket Hospital. So I don't think you have extradition from Rhode Island down to Louisiana.
How about the governor?
Bob,
We could
it's now
extradite-
landmark.
What's that?
Oh, I'm,
So often you say something that
I'm over there with the station wagon. Okay.
you're
Yeah.
still in the station wagon.
All right.
What now if Rhode Island extradites the governor of Louisiana for allowing this to go through and he signed that law?
Rhode Island cannot extradite someone into the state
course
from
they
another
can.
state
And it will
for something
cause a
that they,
war.
that they did in the other state.
Right.
Rhode Island does it to
All
extradite
right,
you.
listen.
First of all, you have to go
Bob,
to court.
Bob, you took me too seriously. It's an absurd suggestion meant to illustrate a point. My point was, this is a federal matter, not a matter of the states. And the states can make all the laws they want, but they can't enforce them. It's going to be a federal decision. Because the role of the federal government as the custodian and trustee of the union is to settle disagreements between states and disagreements among people and states regarding the Constitution.
You know, he's thought about this a lot more than you and I. Although
Well, we
you've
put
thought a
on the.
lot
Are you kidding me? We were put on the spot. I'm sitting there going, "Well, wait, you lost me," but at least I'm back on track.
and you had a good
A
observation
very good
about
point.
the
Yeah,
healthcare
and that's why I
insurance.
want. Before I
You see
say
how
anything,
stupid all
I
this is?
always like to make sure that I know what we're talking about, so that I can contribute to the conversation.
You're so sweet.
I want to go to commercial before I really
Right?
show how ignorant I am. Yes.
Well, no,
Let's do it.
Before commercial, I just want to say, so we found Bob's forte. So when Joe is back on the air, he can't talk sports.
No.
It can't be sports. It
Well,
has
that's
to
too
be
bad, because
history.
that's coming up
Bob
next.
knows history.
Yeah.
Bob knows
Bob
history.
reads
That's his
books.
forte. Yes, Bob. But
Lots and lots of books.
Bob knows history. Anyway, so back to the call. So we have today is May 9th. So we have still a little bit of time for you to enter our Mother's Day giveaway contest. It's online, www.woonsocketcall.com. Yes, the winner will be chosen on Saturday. I'm saying winner chosen on Saturday. I believe the winner may be chosen at the end of today
Oh,
because we want it in the paper on Saturday.
oh, that's right. You
So
do
I,
have-
I I can't confirm
production
that, but
deadline.
just keep entering. Just enter. Let's assume that it ends at the end of today.
and when
Enter
you
the
can't
contest.
enter anymore, it won't take it.
Yes. And the first prize is Foxwoods, overnight stay at Foxwoods. And then the other two prizes are a $100 gift certificate or a $50 gift certificate at one of the advertising businesses, specifically advertising for Mother's Day. Any questions, give me a call at 487-4136.
Thank you very much, Sue. We'll return with more coffee and discussion in just a few moments, but right now, let me just say, it's time for the weather forecast, and it's not going to be an awful day today. I'll illuminate in just a few moments, but it's time for the weather forecast, sponsored by the nice folks at Allstate.
Increasingly cloudy today with a high of 66 degrees and a breeze from the north. Tonight, cloudy skies, overnight low of 45. Friday's weather, mostly cloudy with a high of 56. Saturday, mostly sunny and 58. Sunday, more clouds than sun, high of 58 degrees. Monday, mostly sunny and 66. Tuesday, partly sunny and 71. And on Wednesday, a slight chance of a shower, but mostly cloudy skies with a high of 69.
Presently outside our Navigant Credit Union broadcast studio here at the corner of Park Avenue and Kennedy Street. It's 59 degrees at 8:34. Some people just know there's a better way to do things, like bundling your home and auto insurance with Allstate. Visit allstate.com or call for a quote today.
You've heard it before. The world is getting smaller. Places you had to travel to years ago now seem right next door. It's no surprise, then, that all the communities of the Blackstone Valley have so much in common these days that we share common interests. Keeping up with this trend, the Blackstone Valley's two daily newspapers, The Call and The Times, have joined forces to cover the entire valley in one convenient newspaper. The Blackstone Valley's Call and Times, a paper for the entire valley. At your local store, honor box, or home delivery, 767-8522. Krakow Deli Bakery Smokehouse offers authentic homemade Polish food to make your next meal special. Try our many varieties of hot and fresh pierogies with onions and what they call dirty sour cream. Or pick up golubki, kielbasa, babkas, or some fresh rye bread. We also offer a large selection of specialty and imported foods. Open Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, 9 in the morning till 6 p.m., Wednesdays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturdays from 8 to 5 p.m. It's Krakow Deli Bakery Smokehouse. Follow us on Facebook and learn about our weekly specials. Located at 855 Social Street, Woonsocket, Krakow Deli Bakery Smokehouse has all the authentic Polish foods you love. You know, when you're paying the right price for protection, you just know it. It's that warm, fuzzy, totally secure feeling, knowing that you're not only getting great coverage, but you're also not paying too much for it. And when it comes to your insurance, there's no one better at getting the right price for your protection than Allstate agents Kara and Celeste Benjamin, because they know when it comes to your bank account, every penny counts towards something bigger, something better. Like a nicer car, that home update you've been dreaming of, or a phone that's fresh out of the box. Those little or big things that we work so hard for. And Kara and Celeste Benjamin want to help you work a little less by getting you the coverage you need and the savings you deserve when you switch to Allstate. Contact Kara and Celeste Benjamin at the Benjamin Agency. One agency, two locations in North Smithfield and Bellingham. 765-5000 for a free quote today. Allstate, you're in good hands. And you're in good hands with Kara and Celeste Benjamin at the Benjamin Agency. Savings vary based on the average annual savings reported by new auto customers surveyed in 2019 who switched to Allstate.
Lou Mandeville here to tell you the only place to get your local high school and college scores, as well as the Pats, Bruins, Celtics, and Sox is on my morning sports reports. And they are right here on ON 1240, Monday through Friday on the Morning Fun Show.
Thank you very much, Lou. And we continue here. Dave Richards here on the show. I went back on a couple of texts from Joe. And I remember the one from Monday that says, "Greetings from Disney World, having a wonderful time, never coming back."
And he's not here.
And he's not here, and it's Thursday,
He
and he's
warned
supposed to be
us.
back.
He was
warned
supposed
us.
to be back?
Yeah, he's
Seriously?
supposed to be he was supposed to be back. He had planned to be back today. Yeah.
So maybe he had, but with all
Yeah.
those thunderstorms moved across the country last
It's
night.
a little small, but I'll show you the picture that he texted over to me with
Okay.
Joe Callahan. His wife Gail is on the right. And
Okay, may I just say,
a friend is in the center.
may I just say,
Yeah.
if you tap the button, it becomes bigger.
Yeah, but not big enough to worry about.
And if you turn it sideways, look at how nice
Only
that
if you
picture is.
downloaded it. Only if you downloaded it, which I did later.
Now, who's that? Is that Dave in the middle?
No, it's Pluto.
picture.
It's one of the Disney characters, Pluto.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The resemblance was so similar.
Uncanny.
Yeah.
The tail, right?
Yeah.
Bob, I hope that you're prepared for a message because I'm going to move abruptly to that subject.
I wish I could do these as well
You
as
go,
Sue
Dave.
does, entirely impromptu. I can't. Good morning. This is Attorney Bob Lauder. I'd like to return this morning to a discussion of some of the more recent cases decided by the Rhode Island Supreme Court. And both of these cases illustrate the legal penalties arising from a delay in protecting one's legal rights. The first case is that of the Preserve at Boulder Hills, LLC versus Kenyon. It was decided on April 24th of this year. The Preserve was a group of developers who purchased land in Richmond, Rhode Island, with the intention of developing it into an outdoor shooting range and gun club. The Town Council and the Planning Board initially supported the project, but subsequently an amendment was made to the zoning ordinance which prohibited such a use. The Preserve was not notified of the changes, but in 2016, a new zoning district was created, permitting the indoor and outdoor shooting ranges. The preserve sued the town, claiming that the 2-year delay caused a substantial revenue loss and that the town had engaged in discriminatory practices that increased their cost and hindered their development plans. The Superior Court and the Supreme Court rejected the claims of the preserve, and the plaintiffs took an appeal. The Supreme Court affirmed the judgment of the Superior Court. The court ruled that in all of the alleged actions, the town was to consider to be torts, and that the statute of limitations upon seeking judicial relief from torts was 3 years from the date of the injury. Consequently, although the preserve had the right to construct the shooting ranges, it could not recover for the alleged loss of income. If you'd like to discuss legal matters with me, please call my office for an appointment. My name is Bob Lauder. My telephone number is 762-4550. And the disclaimer: the Supreme Court of Rhode Island licenses all attorneys in the general practice of law. The court does not license or certify any attorney as an expert or specialist in any field of practice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, there's so many different things, and you never know what to believe. That's a good point that you make over there. But when it comes to
We believe whatever we hear on ON.
Thank you. When it comes to the echoes of the pandemic, one of the larger scams for the last year and a half has been, if you ran a business and you had so many W-9 employees, we're going to give you tens of thousands of dollars to compensate you and stuff like that.
I've heard those advertisements.
Right. And it's all just rubbish. If you really qualified for that, you would have been told by the government that you were eligible for that before these private parties came around. And that's the way that is. And so then you just stop listening to all those things. Well, meanwhile, you've got your friends at FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, coming along with a subsequent terrible emergency that happened back in December and January of this year with the severe storms and the flooding and things like that. And they can't get people to apply for disaster relief from the 2024 problems.
They've been knocking on people's
late
doors.
23 and early 24 problems. And so they are putting out the smoke signals from the hills, and they're getting to be guests on talk shows, putting out issues, in the news media. They've even contacted the State Broadcasters Association, say, we need some credibility here. Nobody believes this anymore because of the scams. Nobody believes that they're eligible for this. Now, very few people in Providence County, which is the northern part of the state where we live, are eligible because we didn't have the same damage they had in South County.
Right, but in Burrillville, they've been knocking on doors.
Yeah. Even that. FEMA is doing the full court press to get people to apply. And it took them a long time to agree to fund it. But that's how the government is sometimes. It takes a little bit longer, depending on how busy they are. But so I'm just here to tell you that there's a deadline of May 21st. When is that, Dave? That's
Coming
a week from this coming Tuesday.
Coming quick.
Yeah, for you to apply. And while you're probably like me and quite jaded by all of these different things that have been suggested, you could get lots of money if you just do this. Meanwhile, you give them all kinds of,
What is the criteria?
You give them business information, personal information for your employees, all of these things like that, and then they tell you, you don't qualify. Meanwhile,
By then
they
you
have
already
all
gave
that
it away.
information.
Yep.
What is the criteria for qualifying?
That's terrible.
What is the criteria for qualifying? And
You go to this website to find out, Bob. Disaster Assistance, one word, disasterassistance.gov. Because I don't know, because I ain't applying, because I didn't have any big damage from the. Every time a big storm comes along, we suffer damage, but it's not the kind of damage you can go to the government for.
Right.
Because our advertisers are knocked off their payment schedule. Restaurants were closed in cases of snowstorms, so they have less cash flow to pay the bills. All the rest of these things, we get a hit when there's a storm.
Yep.
Plus, we have to pay like everybody else for the extra snow plowing, to accommodate employees for overtime, because we can't just shut the doors and say we're closed during the storm. We have to stay open and increase our level of operations twofold in order to keep up with the storm and our responsibilities. But you don't go to the government for that. If you can't stand that, get out of the dang business.
But if somebody in Burrillville will say when Dave says damage, if the tree fell, a tree fell.
Yeah.
It takes money to move that tree. And if it hit property, now you got a bigger
Drop
problem.
your electric service,
Yeah.
and then food spoiled, and all the rest of these things, on and on.
So that would qualify as criteria, or is there a amount of damage? Like if you're more than $1,000, or
Well, it's too complicated for me to know, even if I cared. So, but
sending
I'm
my
here
wi-
to tell you that what you're hearing this time is officially from the government, because I've seen the press releases right from the government and talked to the people at the FEMA office in Rhode Island. Yes, this is legit. And that was the whole point of what I was trying to bring up.
Yep.
This is legit. The other stuff you see on the TV in between, reruns of Adam 12, that's not legit.
neither is somebody calling your cell phone and saying, "Are you there?" Never say yes.
Never say yes.
Never say yes.
Right.
And that's one of the newest ones they had on the news, and I think we had it in the
Yeah.
paper.
Well, we made a big deal about this last fall, that I decided that we needed, the entire company needed to be able to communicate in the case of an emergency. So we all got a special service for our phones that is, for first responders and people like us who have to go out when there's a storm, can't stay home, and all the rest of that. And we got iPhones instead of the Androids we all had. And so, the interesting I found out about the iPhones, why, it's a fine piece of equipment. And we're all adjusting to it, is that on my iPhone, and like a light switch, we get 3 to 4 spam calls in the middle of the day. It's a different location that's calling us every time, and it's not for us. And we get now, which we never got on our Android phones, spam texts.
Yep.
And I'm saying, this rots.
Well, I will also tell you that going back a couple years, that before it became Rhode Island Energy, they came up as spam on my phone. And my phone's also an iPhone. But I knew, okay, there was a storm forecast, so they're contacting me to tell me I could lose power. And that because of Ron, because they think he's on a ventilator or something, which he's not. But yeah, so what was it? No, Rhode Island Energy.
Before it was National Grid.
National Grid. I kept wanting to say New England Energy. But National Grid comes up as spam on my phone.
Okay.
So I will still answer a spam call. You just don't talk until they do. Say hello, and that's it.
Yeah.
Of course, Dave Belfour and I would have remembered that as Blackstone Valley Gas and Electric
I was
Company.
just going to say, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you and Bob remember Blackstone Valley Electric without the gas.
Oh, no. That was afterwards.
Oh, that's right. They split up afterwards. I'm wrong.
Yes. Originally, it was PVG&E.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right. With offices at the
On Main Street.
On Main Street, where the
Clinton
rental
Street.
place is
What
now.
about the
Yes.
office that was in Cumberland on Minden Road? Was that also?
Well, that was Valley Gas.
Because
era.
that's where Jeff
They
Palucha.
they had utilities up there, and then they
Okay.
moved an office over because they owned the land.
I remember picking up Jeff Palucha and other, I think it was all guys, and they were going, you would think skiing, because I was driving my limo in about a foot of snow. But they were going away golfing. They might have been going to Myrtle Beach or whatever.
Sure.
And I had to go up there. I just remember that every time I drive by, driving up that
Nice
hill and in a foot of
long
snow.
ascending
Yep,
driveway,
in a foot of snow, unplowed foot of snow because, well, it's not a road.
Right.
Yep, I remember that.
I don't think I would have liked driving a limo under those conditions because, well, I'm a serious driver like so many people are, and I've grown fond of front-wheel drive vehicles. And the rolling stock that you had were all rear-wheel
All
drive,
rear wheel. But I will say,
which is better when you're going down a slippery hill, but going up a slippery
Right.
hill it isn't.
but the weight was a big factor.
Yeah. the
You know,
weight helped.
in all honesty, there was one accident in a snowstorm, and it was Ron that was driving the car.
Yeah.
and he was coming down an icy hill, went right across and into the wall.
Right.
It wasn't, injury related or anything of
Good.
the sort, but it was still an inconvenience. I used to get like, no, I don't want you to drive. We would send the cars out with 2 people in the car. In case of an issue on the road, you had 2 people in the car, and I would always drive because I'm like, nope, I'm driving. I know what I'm doing. I got this. But yeah, it can get a little scary. We did a job in Leicester, which is right, just
Yeah.
into Worcester,
Yeah.
and we here had about a foot of snow, and I'm heading out. Now I'm in panic because I'm like, it's got to be worse as I go.
Yeah.
Nope. By the time I
Coastal
got
storm.
to the Blackstone Valley, well, they ended up getting it later. It definitely moved that direction, but it was later because it started from the coast, like you say. But I get up there, and I'm like, there's no snow on the ground. And I had to do the job because one of my drivers was like, oh, I don't want to go up there in the snow. Okay. So once the snowflakes started, I said, let's go. Gotta go. Get you to the hotel because now it's coming fast and furious.
Yeah.
But I came home. Stores were still open. I went shopping. It was Christmas time. Mm-hmm. Stores were still open. I went to Sears. But nowadays, everything closes once
they
they see a
close for
flake.
anything.
They see a flake and they close.
What was the best car you ever had? The one you liked to drive the most?
It was a personal or
No, when the limos.
with the limos, I would have to say when there was a car accident where we got broadsided by a drunk driver, and again, no injuries, and I had to rent a car because they were paying for it because it was hit and run, so on and so forth, and it was a Cadillac that I had to pick up in Plymouth, Mass, because locally they didn't have it. They didn't have a limo rental, but they have to provide you with a car. Best I could do was a Cadillac, but damn, I liked that car. It was just because it was. Now I could
You
really.
mostly drove Lincolns, right?
All my limos were Lincolns.
Right.
Except I had formals because Lincoln didn't do a formal Cadillac, so you had the jump seats that came up. So we had a gray Cadillac formal and we had a black Cadillac formal, but the stretches were all Lincolns. All Lincolns.
All right. Well, listen, we've got to take another message here from Bob Larder's law office, and then we'll continue with more discussions here this morning on Coffee. And Bob, you are prepared, I am sure.
I have it written in front of me. Thank you. Good morning. This is Attorney Bob Lauder. The second case I'd like to discuss with you this morning also involves an individual who failed to act in an expeditious manner in a legal conflict. This case is known as Ponagansett 2, LLC versus Garcia, and was decided on April 29th of this year. In the Ponagansett case, the defendant hired the plaintiff to perform mechanical work on her property. The parties entered into a written contract, but the defendant failed to pay in accordance with the agreement. The plaintiff stopped work and filed a mechanic's lien on the real estate. Thereafter, the plaintiff filed litigation in the Superior Court. The defendant was served with a summons and complaint. The defendant failed to respond to the complaint, and the plaintiff was granted a default judgment. Thereafter, the defendant filed a motion to vacate the entry of the default judgment and a motion seeking to file a counterclaim out of time, to quash the mechanic lien, and to file an oral proof of claim. The plaintiff, in response, filed a motion for entry of default judgment and a petition for attorney's fees. The Superior Court granted the plaintiff's request and awarded the plaintiff's attorney fees of $12,000. The defendant filed an appeal to the Supreme Court, arguing that the mechanic's lien was unenforceable because the plaintiff had failed to provide notice of a possible mechanic's lien as required by state law, and the Superior Court was in error when it awarded the plaintiff the value of the attorney's fees. The Supreme Court disagreed with the defendant. The court ruled that because the defendant had failed to make a timely response to the plaintiff's complaint, the defendant had waived all rights to contest the default judgment, and the Superior Court had made no error in awarding the damages sought by the plaintiff. If you'd like to discuss legal matters with me, please call my office for an appointment. My name is Bob Lauder. My telephone number is 762-4550. And the disclaimer, the Supreme Court of Rhode Island licenses all attorneys in the general practice of law. The court does not license or certify any attorney as an expert or specialist in any field of practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And discussion continues just a moment. Right now, a word from our business of the day today.
One of Woonsocket's newest restaurants is Fuji Sushi and Grill Asian Cuisine on Diamond Hill Road. This Sunday is Mother's Day, and Fuji will be open, so bring your mom and the whole family for the most authentic Japanese cuisine around. Fuji only uses the highest quality ingredients to ensure that you have the tastiest food on your plate. Fuji is open on Mother's Day at 11:30 a.m. Check out the menu online at fujiwoonsocket.com. Fuji Sushi and Grill Asian Cuisine, 1730 Diamond Hill Road, Woonsocket. Bring mom this Sunday on Mother's Day.
Hi, I'm Kathy LaValle at The Honey Shop. Check out our Facebook page at The Honey Shop RI, and there you'll see a whole list of our new classes and lots of fun things to do. You could join us for making limoncello, pizzas, pasta making, cheese making, so many fun things to do and learn.
Thanks, Kathy. Folks, if you love food, you'll love the Honey Shop, right behind the Dunkin' Donuts at Park Square in Woonsocket.
The Rhode Island Wind Ensemble returns to the St. Anne Arts and Cultural Center on Sunday, May 19th at 3 p.m. with a program entitled Timeless. The concert will feature special guests Rhode Island Sound Brass Quintet and Native American singer Victoria Hazard. Tickets are $20 and are available at Belos Flowers, Creative Impressions, The Honey Shop, Timeless Antiques, and Vos True Value Hardware. Visit the St. Anne Arts and Cultural Center website for more information.
We're back here on Coffee Ann on ON AM and FM radio, and Bob Larder is still here, and so is Sue Tessier McKenzie. And I wonder how the two of you will receive this information. Now, we all know that the government, of course, is there to help you. They smile, and they continue to make that. To me, I think it's just a load of BS, but whatever. That's my personal opinion. But here we are again with another study offering politicians who are seeking re-election to stand up, pound the podium, and say, we're going to save you from this.
What are they going to save us from?
Already, they have outlawed incandescent light bulbs.
Okay.
Can't buy them anymore. It's against the law. Already, they are passing laws to grandfather out and get rid of gas stoves.
Mm-hmm.
And there's assemblage of laws that haven't been enacted yet but are on their way that are going to make it so that you cannot heat your home with fossil fuels. All these things are in the pipeline, as it were, although they're trying to get rid of pipelines.
You're right.
Yeah. So here comes another one, and I can smell this coming. Oh, it's almost a pun. You don't know, but it's almost a pun. I can smell this coming. This is going to be somebody's plank in their political agenda. We're going to remove food. If it smells, it's no good. If you can smell the food cooking, you are dying. Here he goes.
What is that?
From Washington, D.C., the story reads, new research shows the smell of food cooking is a sign of air pollution and must be done away with. A new study from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which is a division of the U.S. government run by Gina Raimondo, he fumes, measured what they called underappreciated sources of urban air pollution, is what they're calling the scent of food cooking. Researchers wrote that if you can smell the food, there's a good chance it's impacting air quality. Overall, they found that cooking accounts for nearly a quarter of volatile organic compounds in the air. Those are human-made chemicals that are used in making paints and pharmaceuticals. Researchers are still looking at what these results mean for air quality, but the study's lead author says having the data is the first step to doing away with fire and all means of heat.
Are these people nuts?
It's right there. I'm not kidding. It's right
Okay.
there. I read it word for word. Oh, I added 3 words. It must be done away with. Oh, that's more than 3 words. But whatever. I added that in for effect. Because that's what the
Okay.
intent of the story was. That we must do something about this.
Oh,
What are
for
we
the
going to
love of
do about this?
Talk to
Now,
the
we have to
protesters,
put
see what
HEPA
ideas they
filters
have.
on the exhaust fans of restaurants.
For the love of God.
There must be automatic Febreze injectors Oh, by the way, they'll probably go off on Febreze next. Injectors.
Because you can
so
smell it.
Because you can't smell. Actually, you can't smell Febreze. They have to add scent to it. It's like natural gas.
Right.
You can't smell it, but they have to add a scent to it so you know you're
Kind of
breathing.
like apple wood smoking on the grill. Now that smells good, but that's also a scent that was somewhat added to it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Just
I
All you
have
gotta
nothing.
do-
I got nothing.
all
They're
you got
nuts.
to do.
They're nuts.
All you got to do is sit back and do nothing and let the woke movement ruin everything on the planet.
Oh, wait a
The
minute. I'm
unintended
not going to
consequences.
agree with all of that. You know that.
Of course not.
Well, what
But there's no time
I
to
label them
debate
the
it.
yes, I label them the woke movement, but generally it's the group of people that have always existed, the earthworms of society, I've called them in the past, who seek change for the sake of self-aggrandizement, of I caused the change, I'm important. Doesn't matter what the change, unintended consequences are, but they just want change for change's sake. Yes.
I have to throw this out there. I just got to answer. The contest ends today. So
Okay.
enter to win.
Close of business today?
Close of
4 or
business
5,
today.
something like that?
WoonsocketCall.com.
We'll do it right after the show, folks. Speaking of right after the show, got a final comment for us, Sue?
Yes, happy Mother's Day to all the moms, whether you're a new mom, had many children, or just have loving pets that you're a mother to.
Or maybe you had a mom and you just want to
And
remember
passed
them.
on, yes.
Yes, because this is my first Mother's Day without Mom to wish
Oh,
happy
sorry to
Mother's Day
hear
to.
that.
Well, it happens, my friends. It happens. Bob?
Boy, am I glad that Sue reminded me of Mother's Day coming up. You've helped preserve.
Well, I was hoping
You
that
lived
would
a
be the
charmed life.
debating conversation today, but I walked in, that wasn't what was happening. You know, that whole,
No,
what
Bob
do you do
was
for
loaded
Mother's
for
Day?
bear when he first started. It was like down to the mud.
It's like, what is that? I should have,
Mud, yes.
I should have had some Kahlua in my coffee. God.
Thank you for inviting me. Hope to see you soon.
And folks, I'll remind you that if you missed any portion of today's wonderful program, pick it up on demand at WoonsocketRadio.com. Gary and the gang will be here in 28 scant minutes with another Do You Remember program. In the meantime, what is today? Thursday. So we have De Todo Un Poco at 7 o'clock tonight for our Spanish-speaking listeners. Make it a good day.
Broadcasting live and local daily from the Navigant Credit Union broadcast studio at the corner of Park Avenue and Kennedy Street. This is WOON Woonsocket Radio. And now, the news.
News from Massachusetts, Marblehead is the latest town in the Commonwealth to reject that new state zoning law. You know, the one that requires cities and towns served by the MBTA to rezone to allow multifamily housing? Well, they don't like it. Voters at Marblehead Town Meeting have rejected the compliance. The list of communities opposed to the MBTA Communities Act is growing, with several of them in open defiance and being sued by the state already. Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey plans to promote economic ties between Massachusetts and Italy when she visits the Vatican next week. She was invited by Pope Francis to speak at the Vatican's Global Climate Summit. An NPR station in Boston reported the governor said she plans to meet with the Italian business leaders about expanding into the state. Healey said the trip is an opportunity to highlight the Commonwealth on a global stage.
While doing your spring cleaning this year, be sure to take a look at your gutters. Did they survive the winter? If not, call Ryzen Seamless Gutters of Woonsocket. They offer complete gutter services from meticulous cleaning to expert repairs and installations. Ryzen Seamless Gutters want your gutters to function seamlessly and look great all year long. They were voted gold in ON Radio's Best of the Blackstone Valley for Best Roofing Company. Call Mike Ryzen today for a quote at 401-390-0685, 390-0685, or look them up on Facebook. Ryzen Seamless Gutters, one of the best of the Blackstone Valley. One of our gold medal winners in the Best of the Blackstone Valley is Marchand Environmental of Blackstone. They won gold in the category of septic service. They also won silver in the junk removal dumpsters category. For information, visit marchandenvironmental.com, one of the best of the Blackstone Valley.
NBC News Radio, I'm Michael Kastner. The U.S. has stopped funding offensive weapons for Israel over concerns about a large-scale military offensive in the Gaza city of Rafah. President Biden on CNN.
They go into Rafah. They haven't gone into Rafah yet. If they go into Rafah, I'm not supplying the weapons that have been used historically to deal with Rafah.
U.S. officials say the move is to prevent massive civilian casualties as ceasefire negotiations continue with partners in Egypt. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham on the decision.
This is obscene. It is absurd. Give Israel what they need to fight the war they can't afford to lose. This is Hiroshima and Nagasaki on steroids.
The GOP presidential frontrunner and former President Donald Trump also condemned the move. NBC News is reporting defensive weapons will still be provided to Israel in their fight against Hamas. The Biden administration has advocated against an offensive in Rafah without a plan for protecting civilians. Former President Trump's New York hush money trial resumes today with Stormy Daniels back on the stand. The former adult film star is at the core of the case. It accuses Trump of falsifying business records to cover up paying her $130,000 to stay quiet about an alleged affair ahead of the 2016 election. FTX says it has enough money to pay most of its creditors back in full after its collapse. More from Tammy Trujillo.
The failed cryptocurrency exchange said in a statement that its plan would resolve disputes with private and governmental stakeholders without costly and protracted litigation. The Sam Bankman-Fried-led exchange collapsed in 2022, leaving the CEO to later be found guilty of fraud and conspiracy and sentenced to 25 years in prison. FTX said it recovered assets associated with the crypto exchange at the time of its collapse, estimated to be between $14.5 and $16.3 billion.
Michael Kastner, NBC News Radio.
Lou Mandeville here with a look at sports. Boston Bruins fell to the Florida Panthers 6-1 last night. Charlie Coyle staked Boston to a 1-0 lead after one period.